So there's this pigeon. Now, I don't have anything against pigeons in general. I know some people think that they're flying vermin, rats with wings. No, I say no to that. I do not hate pigeons as a general rule. You know, if I met a pigeon that was an arsehole, then, you know, on an individual pigeon by pigeon basis, I would say yes. I don't appreciate that pigeon. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't have anything against pigeon folk in general, or pigeon kind. Nonetheless, there's this pigeon that bothers me. It could be that the pigeon, it could be it's not the one pigeon. It could be that it's many pigeons and that I'm just seeing those pigeons around and I think it's the same pigeon, but it's not the same pigeon. Maybe it's different pigeons. And maybe, I don't like to say it, but, pigeons kind of all look the same. But, don't say that. It's an unpopular opinion. But it could also be that the pigeon has maybe brothers and maybe they all look alike and I'm just seeing the same family. It could be that. But what I do know is this pigeon has crept into my soul, much like Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, although ravens are cooler. I don't know if I would get away with writing a poem called The Pigeon. Quoth the pigeon, nevermore. It doesn't have the same ring to it. So, there's this pigeon. And it's been bothering me now for, I'd say, about 2 years. And when I say bother me, I don't mean it comes up to my door and or poos on me. Well, that has happened to me before, but it was a seagull. I don't like to talk about it. What it does is it just hangs around. I've seen this pigeon out my front garden. I've seen it out the back. It sits on the houses across from my house, on the roof. It sits on the roofs of the houses behind. And what bothers me about it is that this started a couple of years ago. One day I'm looking out my window, minding my own business, and I see a pigeon that's just been freshly ran over. And I always remember when I was a kid, when I was a young boy, I remember the first time I found an animal that had been ran over, and coincidentally it was a pigeon, and it really messed with me. But this pigeon had been killed. It had been ran over. I live near some schools, and the street that I live on is always packed with cars. It's quiet otherwise because it's like a sort of cul-de-sac. But when the schools open for business, that doesn't make any sense. When parents are coming to pick up their kids for school, the place is really mobbed. There's a lot of people around. And this pigeon was the casualty of that. So I'm blaming the school. I'm blaming the children for this dead pigeon. No. And so the pigeon had been ran over. And everybody disappeared from the area. And I went out because it was one of those ones where, is it dead? Is it not dead? And I thought, I'd go out and check to see if the pigeon's alive. Maybe it's just a broken wing. Maybe I can bring it in and help it, or phone the SSPCA or so. But no, unfortunately the pigeon was well and truly dead. Now I know what you're thinking at this point. You're thinking, the pigeon that I'm seeing that's bothering me, is it a ghost pigeon? Am I being haunted by a pigeon? No, I'm not saying that. You're saying that. I wouldn't say that. It's not a ghost pigeon, as far as I know. It could be. I mean, that's just occurred to me right now. Maybe that's the horror writer in me. But it's not that. I mean, it was sad. It upset me. But there's another pigeon near the body, and it's just looking at it. And I know as human beings we personify, or we anthropomorphize things, so we transfer what it's like to be a human onto an animal, and maybe it's not a similar thing, maybe it is. But this pigeon just looked like it was in shock. I mean, I don't mean it was like, it just was staring at this other dead pigeon. So anyway, I dispose of the dead pigeon, and days after that, I keep seeing this solitary pigeon, and it keeps landing in my driveway, and in my garden, and in my back garden. It's on its own. I am convinced this is the same pigeon, and it's there. Just every now and then, for a first while, it was there constantly, and then it was kind of there quite regularly, and now it's every now and then I see it, and I saw it today. I'm convinced it's the same pigeon sitting on my shed, and I don't know a lot about pigeon behaviour, but I'm pretty sure this type of pigeon mates for life, or at least has a partner that they stay with for a long time. I know a lot of birds do. So in my head, I'm seeing this pigeon, and it's just in grief. The pigeon is just lost because its partner has been killed, and now it has no joy in its life or purpose, or I don't know. But I see this pigeon, and whenever I see it, it just reminds me of how fragile life is. And I think about my wife. So I see this pigeon and I think of my wife. Is that weird? Probably. And you see people a lot that after they've lost their partner and things like that, and it's tough times, especially when they're older. They've been with that person their entire life, and then it's like, well, what do you do for your last few years? It's adjusting is very difficult. But seeing this pigeon, man, every time I see it, and I'm not saying this like I'm annoyed at the pigeon. I'm not annoyed at the pigeon. The pigeon. I'm going to say that again. I've said pigeon too many times now that I'm actually second guessing myself as to whether I'm saying it right. I'm not annoyed at the pigeon. I feel really, really sorry for the pigeon. I'm sure it's the same pigeon. I feel really sorry for it. And it just reminds me every single time I see it of the fragility and the temporary fleeting nature of life and the time that you spend with your loved ones. There, I said it. Am I thinking about this too much? Am I thinking about this too much? Maybe I am. But sometimes you can see something and it just sticks like a thorn in your head. And this pigeon, this poor, lonely pigeon, it does that. It's like a thorn. It's like a pigeon stuck in my head, if you can imagine that. And I've tried to make friends with it. Take some food out to it, but I think it's not interested. But I'm washing the dishes in the back of my house. The kitchen's at the back of the house, and I'm washing the plates, and I'm looking out at the houses behind ours, and the fence to my garden is right there, and this pigeon just lands right there, and it looks like it's staring at me through the window as I'm washing dishes. And sometimes I feel like it's saying, I know, it's terrible, isn't it? So this video has no point to it. What I'm saying is, sometimes you see things and it sticks with you, and it sends you on a weird, grief-stricken, tangential path, and you think about these things, and every now and then that pigeon lands, and I can be happy, everything's going well, the pigeon lands and I see it, and it just gives me a second. But I think that's a good thing, because some people coast through life and they don't really think about death, and they don't really think about losing things and loved ones. They don't think about how 1 minute they're there and the next they might not be. And without thinking about that every now and then, I think you shut yourself off to the fullness of life. And you have to know, I mean, it's a cliche to say it, but you have to know the down points. You have to know the sadness. And maybe in some ways you have to know the fleeting nature of it to know how special it is and how special the time is. You know, I got married nearly 2 years ago, and it's just been fantastic. And when I see that pigeon, it makes me want to go through and give my wife a wee hug and tell her that I love her. And it's a weird thing. I know this is a weird thing. This is a weird video. This may be the weirdest video that I've made. But it reminds me of how important these things are and how important it is to cherish what's there in your life and how lucky you are, because there are a lot of people that aren't anywhere near as lucky as you. And one day you could lose it. You could lose it all. You know, you could lose the people you love, or they could lose you. And that's it's good to recognize that, because it means that you value what you have and you don't take people for granted, and you don't take situations for granted. You try to experience them, let in the fullness of life, and then move forward. Hopefully learning something, maybe being a little bit humbler. I don't know. That's what that pigeon does for me. Although I just feel sad that the pigeon is on its own, and I really hope, I don't know how it works with pigeons, but I really hope one day I'm going to be looking out my window and I'm going to see that pigeon just land on the fence, and this other pigeon's going to come down and land next to it. As my phone makes this funny noise. That's the noise that a pigeon will make. Another pigeon will land down next to it, and the pigeon won't be alone anymore. Not that I'm saying you should replace people. That's not what I'm saying, but I don't know. It would be nice to see that. So that's all I wanted to say about this pigeon and about the impermanence of life, and how you should just try to enjoy it and appreciate and take in the sad moments as well, because sad moments are beautiful and they let you know what's important. And that's all. So take that with you, and I'll see you in the next video.